Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wellbeing at Work, a workplace options podcast. I'm Ryan Arruda, a global marketing and communications intern here at WPO.
And I'm Emma Goldstein, an internal communications intern.
And today we are extremely fortunate to be joined by WPO's own president and CEO, Alan King. Good morning, Alan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So, Alan, we and the viewers understand you are the CEO, but would you like to give a quick bio about yourself?
Sure. I've been at WPO now going on 24 years. So it's been quite a long time, the widest stretch of my work life. I am not a business person by education, nor am I a clinician, nor am I a consultant or specialist in any of the things that we do. My background is as a librarian, so I have a master's degree in library science, and then was able to make the segue into where I am now.
That's great. And may I ask, we are URI students, where you kind of went through your education?
I did. So University of Rhode Island, in beautiful Kingston, Rhode Island, in sort of Fortress Rodman Hall at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are excited to return in a few short weeks.
Excellent. Well, good for you.
So today's episode will be covering generational dynamics in the workplace. So now that I've introduced it, let's jump right in. So, Alan, we wanted to talk to you in your mind as the perspective of a CEO. And we'll start with our first question, which is, how have you seen generational dynamics evolve or change over the course of your leadership?
It's interesting because I'm as far from Gen Z as almost you could possibly be. And, part of that experience has been as a human being of my age, looking at my own children and others that are looking at it. My children are not even Gen Z at this point of time. And I think in all generations, there are different expectations that are formed not just by that individual's age group, but really by the dynamics of the time that they're being brought up. And for so much of Gen Z, there's a large part of this that is impacted by COVID. And COVID for all of us was one of those experiences that forced you to look at your life in a way that was pretty unique. And what we've experienced and what I've seen from this group is this sense that it's not just driven by how much you earn. It's not driven by an ambition to go higher and higher and earn more and more. It's this balance of value. And the value is what you're being paid against the quality of the experience and the challenges and how much you actually enjoy your job. And what we've noticed is that our ability to create a workplace where people want to be, where they feel engaged and connected, is as attractive as the salary that we offer or the benefits that we offer people. And that's very unique to the newer members of the workforce.
Mm-hmm. And with Gen Z being the newest generation to enter the workforce, are there any specific strengths that you see Gen Z carrying into the workplace that may have been not completely absent, but not as prevalent and strong in other generations?
Yeah, I think it's that whole lack of acquiescence to the existing order. It's a challenge. Okay, well, why does it have to be this way? And that perspective is what keeps things fresh in any organization. Having new eyes, and not just you having someone new who enters your company, but having someone who enters your company, but also comes with a different perspective. If you're smart as a business person, if you're smart as a company, you harness that creativity by letting it loose. This podcast, I mean, this is an example. Who am I to sit and have a conversation with Gen Z people like I understand? I don't. you're helping me understand. And in this podcast, you're asking questions that are pertinent to you and pertinent to your age group to that I think really will make a difference.
Yeah, and I think one of the comments you made was pretty remarkable because it's something that all the guests have shared so far, is that Gen Z is a different generation and we are going to come in with that different background, but the business world is different than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, where there was more of a fall in line format. Whereas now you have these new breakout generations where, like you'd mentioned, why not harness that innovation and harness that ability to learn more, to strive to do more? So, that's definitely a strength of Gen Z. But on the other side of the board, we all have our different difficulties. So where would you say you see points of difficulty, whether it be between Gen Z and older generations or workplace expectations in general?
So for Gen Z, I think you have this double-edged sword, the creativity, the desire to make change and see things done, but there's sort of an impatience with it. And you don't just snap your fingers and suddenly everything gets fixed. That it takes some time, and not just time because people are slow, but time because you have to process and build and test and get things done. And so what I've noticed is that there is a lack of patience that sometimes gets in the way of that creative spark, or is seen as a negative where that's really a part of it. And at the same token, in older work generations, is sort of that young puppy that is jumping up all over. They look at that, okay, too much energy. Then they'll make stereotypical jokes about age and, oh, if I only had that much energy. It's not about energy. It's about vibrancy. And so I think for both, it's a willingness or a need to learn a sense of patience as not being a bad thing, but a sense of patience as being a journey towards a goal. And for older generations of workers, not seeing that enthusiasm as simply just energy, but that enthusiasm as ideation, as creative content, as opportunistic, as points of collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like going off of the points of difficulty between the generations, do you think there's anything specific about Gen Z's experience starting out their career that differs from previous generations when it comes to remote internships, greater emphasis on purpose and well-being, flexibility within the workplace?
I think what's unique for your work group is that you're entering the business world, you're entering the work world at a time when it is undergoing transformation, as opposed to everyone else who is already in work and they're experiencing change. And there's a difference between when you have to process change versus you're at the beginning of transformation. Change, and I don't care whatever age you are, change is not something that most people love. But when you're at the beginning stage of where something is happening, it's you're a part of it. It's not something that's happening to you, it's happening with you.
Mhm.
And I think that makes a fundamental difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And companies that kind of aid and support this change see, I'm sure, higher retention rates among staff because, for example, WPO was just taken, in a transition to telehealth. And
Mhm.
even as an intern looking into this kind of view of a full-time employee, we have so many resources where we have either people from TELUS, people from Workplace Options, or maybe even people from outside guiding the individuals through this process, saying, hey, here are the things that are going to change, here are the things that are not going to change. Even though this is a big thing going on, you are still just as important as you were yesterday. And as you continue in the future, we will still be here for you. So I think that's remarkable that a company like Workplace Options takes on that value. But there are some companies that may not be doing that, and that may be, leaving their employees with a surprise. So do you think companies are doing enough to support? I mean, we're discussing Gen Z in this case, but we can go into the wider view. But for this question, do you think companies are doing enough to support Gen Z's development and integration? And do you think that there's anything specific that companies are missing?
In general, no, I don't think companies are doing the right job. And the reason I say that is I think because companies, when they are looking at this, they're compartmentalizing you. They're looking at the demographics of their age groups, and they're saying, I have Gen Zs, I have baby boomers that are exiting out of the business, I have, Gen X, Gen Y, everything else in between there. And while it is important, and from WPO as an international organization delivering services in 200 plus countries and territories around the world, we understand the importance of being mindful to individual demographics, individual cultures, and languages. What I think the problem is, and this is where what I don't think most organizations are doing that, Ryan, you saw in workplace options, and that is understanding difference, but also focusing on similarities. That what you experience in us and saying, that really the depth of communication and engagement, that's a human need. That's not a human need that is distinguished by age groups. That's just a human need. We have this fight or flight uh, part of ourselves that is instinctual in what we do. And when you see change, change is okay. I don't know what's going to happen. You get into this protective mode. And what we know is when change happens, the absence of communication, even if you don't know exactly what's happening, but communicating, you don't know exactly what's happening. And here's what we're going to do about that. That in the absence of that kind of communication, people will create their own ideas. And when they create their own ideas, most of the time, they're not good ideas. They're ideas of what bad things are going to happen. So, I mean, my answer to your question is, I think the problem is that organizations try too much to focus on demographics, and they spend less time focusing on the broad culture. If you're in a workforce and we compartmentalize everybody by their generational categories, how do we get collaboration? Do we have to create these formal bridges that are there? It's not. The workplace is collaborative. You're sitting next to and engaging with people who are older than you. When you get older, you'll be engaging with people younger than you. There'll be a Gen, whatever comes after Z. There'll be something else that is there. That's ongoing for us. And so really the opportunity is not how we just speak to that audience, but how do we speak to everybody so that you feel a part regardless of how old you are, how long you've been, or how much of experience you've had in the workplace here, so that this company benefits from the talents of everyone and not just in a compartmentalized way.
Yeah, and I really value the fact that WPO puts, not only do you put emphasis on the importance of that, but also your actions align with that. It's not like a all talk, no show or anything like that. I feel like this company in specifics, you're a holistic well-beings solutions, and you treat your employees the same way that you say that you're treating your clients. And I feel like that's a really important aspect of creating a successful workplace. Do you think that emotional well-being plays a really big role in helping Gen Z thrive in a traditional or high pressure environment like how the workplace is right now?
I think you are way more attuned to how you're treated than older generations of workers, because they weren't given that. They were, the fact that you got a paycheck, that used to be, jokes around, look, I like you because you're getting a paycheck. Well, that's not enough, and that's not the case. And what it implies is if I didn't like you, you wouldn't get a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the quality of your performance is not whether I respect what you've done or you've had a meaningful impact of something. And again, to going back to that point, not just the Gen Z, human beings want to know they're appreciated. Human beings want to know that they're respected. And I'm no different than that. I am my own petri dish. I know what it felt like to work in organizations where I was a number. And I didn't enjoy those organizations. I didn't stay in those organizations. So for me, doing the opposite of the things that make me feel bad is the goal. So if I get nervous, if I don't understand what's going on, well, what's the way to fix that? To figure out what's going on. If I get nervous, probably everybody else gets nervous. So how do we go about doing those things? But I think for Gen Z, the difference is you say, "Oh, this is not okay," and you will either say that out loud or you'll say that by turning your back and going someplace else. And so that's really an important difference. And I think in some ways, because you're the rising workforce, that you have power in the ability to do that. Organizations will end up wasting time, energy, and money training people if they don't have a culture that encourages people to stay with them and respond to that piece. So I think this is how you have an impact on how the wider organization feels to other work generations.
Yeah, and I mean, I can definitely vouch for that because, I mean, to provide a little bit of a personal anecdote, I mean, I've had a few minimum wage positions in my community locally. One of them, though, was at Best Buy, which is obviously, a larger global company. And I don't know, the monotonous task every morning of punching in my number to clock in and having the same spiel every morning. You're pushing credit cards and memberships. And even on my last day when I just had enough, still getting that training, you didn't sell enough today. And I'm like, it was nice. No, it was basically like that last conversation. And I'm like, and then you see this, because it would happen in groups. You had this group that I started with, and then you have this next group being trained because all those people were out the door, whether it was management or, strictly lower level individuals. So I think that Gen Z definitely emphasized the need for, I mean, emotional well-being is just one of the things that needs to be incorporated, but Gen Z emphasized the need for that. But now it's showing these other generations saying, listen, you don't have to be treated this way. You are not just a number, you are an individual, and you are a piece of the puzzle that's going to solve something greater. And it's giving people, though, a reason to say, you know what, I do feel in power and in control where I can move at this point, or I can adjust, or I can speak up. So, we talk about Gen Z kind of reforming and changing the workplace in that aspect. Alan, would you say you've had any surprising lessons or insights that Gen Z has taught you or your team directly?
It's sort of been iterative for me. It's not like suddenly it's there. I get reminders. So one of the things I've been doing for almost as long as I've been at WPO is I make the opportunity to meet with every new hire in the organization. And as we've grown bigger, as we've had to pivot to working virtually, I now do that in a virtual way. And so I have a lot of opportunities to hear from all ages. But we have, as you would expect, a lot of Gen Zs now coming into our workplace. And it's the questions I get. And the questions that I get from the Gen Z workers coming into WPO, the new teams that are coming in versus older people, are almost always about the qualitative things in the company, not the quantitative things in the company. And I think that is refreshing because it's putting the emphasis on what works for them. And you said before that we try to walk the talk. Well, it's an incredibly important thing for us to walk the talk because our business is helping human beings with human beings. We don't have AI bots that do things for us. We have human beings that answer the phone. And I am an incredibly judgmental person in my life. Anyone will tell you that, and I wear that as a badge of honor. But my judgment is almost always like spot on, and I can smell insincerity in a heartbeat, and it turns me off. But when people are calling and asking for help, when they found the courage to pick up the phone or to go online and say, I'm having a really horrible time in my life, can you help me? The last thing they want is for someone who is going to treat them like they're taking an order at McDonald's. They need human beings who have the same level of empathy to support them as they would hope to have in their own lives. And that comes when people feel that they're supported and protected. So I'm saying not just it's in my constitution for people to be treated in the way that I would want to be treated, but it's also a business necessary measure. Because if we don't create an environment that our humans helping other human beings feel supported, then we fail as a business.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And again, like, I feel like workplace completely reflects what they like praise themselves on or pride themselves on. It's like completely reflected in the actions. But I know Ryan and I have been going on about how you guys walk the talk or whatever, but not everyone listening to our podcast is an employee. So can you share some strategies that Workplace Options uses to foster inclusion and understanding across the different age groups?
So, I mean, there are a few things. We don't segregate. So you don't have people segregated out. You're newer to the organization. It doesn't mean that newness, you have to earn your stripes. Mm-hmm. Every person who comes to WPO from the first moment you're here, we trust you as if you've been here 100 years. There's no difference in that. And that's unique. I've worked in lots of organizations, and trust is something that is always earned over time. And even in our personal lives, we you don't just instantly trust somebody. Usually it's the opposite. You have to experience that. We don't do that at WPO. You're here. We made the right decision. We think you made the right decision. Boom. Now let's just get down to business. So I think that's important. The other is, as I said, we don't segregate. It's mixing it up. Is that your colleague is whomever is the one interacting with you, and that person could be in a different country. They could be a different race, a different faith, a different ethnicity. They could speak different languages. They could be a different age. There's a ton of ways they could be different, but it's that similarity. And the similarity is they are here to help someone improve their life. And the fact that we are a business that has as its sole function improving the lives of the people who use it, that is as sexy and as powerful a passionate draw that you can get from people. And if you can tap into that passion, everything else goes. So I think is that strategy of really making certain that we see holistically the people that we're helping, but we see holistically the people who are helping them. It takes a village, and at WPO, that village is what we've sought to create.
Yeah, 100%. And again, just to revouch for our listeners, I mean, the amount of resources that we get sent to us, even just as interns, most companies treat their interns, and you see that it's actually funny, the amount of like memes and online commentary you see around it. It's like, the interns sitting down again for another team meeting, and they're all on their phones, and this and that. But yeah, that's not how it is at WPO. I mean, you see other companies where the interns, they have a little desk in the corner and they're there all day. And that one employee walks over going, is everyone okay? All right, well, I'm going to go back to doing my work. You guys just sit down. But that's not how it is at WPO. I mean, you mentioned the trust thing, but it's real. I mean, we were immediately from day one, we have resources arriving at our doorsteps. technology and online. We're immediately placed in these groups, and we're allowed to use these resources that WPO provides, these intercompany resources. We stepped in. It was the Wellbeing at Work week, I think, was one of our first weeks, and immediately we're creating LinkedIn posts for our personal accounts describing our experiences, seeing how WPO is communicating with the outside world, but also the inner world. They're inviting employees, please watch. So, I mean, you mentioned it takes a village. We absolutely see that. And I mean, I'll invite our viewers just to check out the WPO website, the blog section, the podcast, the LinkedIn. You're going to see that it's a lot more about not just the company, but about the people that are the reasons why the company is so successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Emma and I have had discussions personally about this because we are, the two URI people working on this podcast, but we absolutely see this. So, we're discussing Gen Z and their place in this kind of multi-generational melting pot to create the successful product. Alan, how should leaders adapt their approach to better manage these multi-generational teams more effectively when all of these people are bringing their own skills to the table?
So I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think the thing they need to do first is probably the thing they're not doing at all. And that is look first at similarities. We're so quick to attune ourselves to differences that we forget the similarity part. And that's what connects people together. So if you don't create a connection in your organization to every person who works there, then you're never going to have an organization that's ever going to meet its full potential. So making that connection first, then you've got people engaged with you. Now fine tuning it. So okay, for this group of, or this age, or for this department, or for this type of work, I need to fine tune my conversation so that people understand the same way we learn how to communicate in different cultures or different languages, what's important to them and how we engage. And that comes second. And I think when organizations try to thoughtfully look at generational workplace difference, they start out at looking at generational workplace difference. And while that's certainly okay, it's missing the key element that you can't have difference be your lead.
Mm-hmm.
Similarity. We use this phrase of cultural commonality. So yes, while everything has to be different linguistically and culturally and regulatorily in different locations, some things are the same. And that is, when we ask the question, did we help you? Did we help you? It doesn't, the answer is not going to be different whether you're in France or whether you're in China, whether you're 22 years old or whether you're 72 years old. Help, yes or no? And so that's, a focus. You look at the things that really connect, and then you look at the things that are different.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, unfortunately, human nature to just like look for the negatives or the downsides of a situation first. And we kind of have to like train our brains into thinking in a different way. It's like the same thing as like with like in comparison to a company like trying to understand differences, but like looking at the similarities first. It's like starting a new relationship. Like you meet someone, you're like, oh, what city are you from? That's crazy. I'm from the same place. Our upbringings must have been similar. Let's talk about that. Like maybe we can build something off of it. I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to creating a workplace that, benefits everybody and, gives everyone the opportunity to showcase their strengths. But
100%. And unlike our current administration, you don't lead by division.
Exactly.
I think one of the hallmarks of a successful group is, you're going to have this large organization of people, but if I can bond with a person over the fact that we're from the same place, or we enjoy listening to the same type of music, or whatever it may be, that's just going to make it more successful, because instead of having all these, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, you're going to have a group of 3, a group of 4, a group of 5. And among those groups, all right, well, group 3 knows each other by place, and group 4 likes, the same genre of music, and group 5, it may be that they're all the same age. Well, now group 4 and 5, Now they have a shared commonality, and then that way we're able to build on, we're able to build on that open communication, A, but B, those shared things that we all have, because at the end of the day, we are all human. And that division, like you mentioned, among the current administration is unnecessary. You're going to have people from all over the world. I mean, you see it absolutely, because we are this global company. You're going to have these different backgrounds and these different people. So if we can move forward celebrating that instead of putting that kind of in the backlight and acting like it doesn't exist, then that's what we need to do, is to celebrate it and continue showing up.
100%. Great.
Well, we have one more question for you.
Okay.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to Gen Z as they begin to shape the future of work?
I think I'll go back to what I said before. The piece of advice is don't lose your enthusiasm. Don't lose your sense of right and wrong, that this works for me or not. That's incredibly important. But temper it with a patience that just because something doesn't happen overnight doesn't mean that it won't happen, doesn't mean that you're being listened to, doesn't mean that you're not being valued. And that's the part. Don't accept interminable delays, but take a breath and recognize that sometimes making change takes a little bit longer than a snap of the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that for a generation that's so eager to enter and make change is an important thing to carry on into their official workplace life. This has been a great discussion. Thank you so much, Alan, for joining us today. And thanks to all of you for listening.
Be sure to join us next week when we'll sit down with Dr. Kimberly Page, business law professor at the University of Rhode Island, to explore today's business landscape and how leaders can empower Gen Z employees to help shape the future of work.
Until next time, thanks for listening and take care.